It was a quiet, picture-perfect HOA neighborhood, the kind with trimmed lawns, matching mailboxes, and unspoken rules about who belongs. That calm shattered the moment Karen's voice cut through the street. "Excuse me," she shouted, storming across the sidewalk, clipboard in hand. A black woman walking peacefully froze as neighbors turned to watch. Karen didn't lower her voice. She raised it. "That outfit is indecent. This is a family community." Whispers rippled. Curtains shifted. Phones slowly lifted. The woman looked down at herself, jeans, a fitted top, nothing obscene. Still, Karen pointed like a judge delivering a sentence. "You can't dress like that here. HOA rules. Either cover up or leave." The street went silent. Karen expected embarrassment, tears, an apology. What she got instead was calm. The black woman didn't argue. She didn't shout. She didn't explain herself. She simply met Karen's eyes, steady, unshaken, and said nothing. That silence irritated Karen more than anger ever could. Because in that moment, Karen thought she had won. She thought this was just another woman she could shame, control, and push around. She had no idea that this quiet moment was the worst mistake she would ever make. Before this story goes any further, tell me where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. I want to see how far this truth travels. And if you believe respect should never depend on race, rules, or who's holding a clipboard, hit like and subscribe. This channel exists for stories where truth stands tall and power doesn't. Her name didn't matter to the HOA. To them, she was just another new resident, another face they hadn't approved, another presence that didn't quite fit their idea of community standards. She had moved into the neighborhood only a few months earlier. Quietly. No housewarming party. No loud guests. No complaints. Her lawn was always clean. Her trash cans were brought in on time. Her car was parked exactly where it was supposed to be. If anything, she was the kind of homeowner HOAs claimed to want. But calm confidence makes some people uncomfortable. She walked the neighborhood every morning, earbuds in, posture straight, eyes forward. She smiled politely when spoken to and kept moving when she wasn't. She didn't linger. She didn't explain herself. She didn't ask for permission to exist. That, more than anything else, seemed to bother Karen. Karen had been HOA president for years. She knew every bylaw by heart, or at least the one she liked to use. She believed rules weren't just guidelines. They were tools. And she had learned exactly who to use them on. Not the loud contractors. Not the aggressive homeowners with lawyers. Not the people who looked like they belonged. Her focus was always selective. The first warning came as a letter slid under the door. Dress code violation. No explanation. No photo. Just a vague line about maintaining community decency. The woman read it once. Then again. She didn't react. She didn't complain to neighbors. She didn't post online. She folded the letter neatly and placed it in a drawer. The second warning came faster. Then a third. Each one more confident than the last. Still, she said nothing. What Karen didn't know was that silence wasn't submission. It was observation. Every encounter was noted. Every word was remembered. Every sideways look, every raised eyebrow, every concerned comment was quietly added to a growing picture. Karen, on the other hand, felt emboldened. In her mind, this was working. The woman hadn't pushed back. No husband had shown up angry. No lawyer's letter had arrived. So Karen did what people like her always do when unchecked. She escalated. And this time, she planned to make sure the entire neighborhood watched. The next notice didn't come quietly. This time, Karen made sure it was official. A bright orange violation tag was taped directly to the front door, impossible to miss, impossible to ignore. Neighbors slowed their cars as they passed. One even stopped, pretending to check their phone while reading it. Final warning, non-compliance will result in fines. Inside, the wording was sharper. Colder. Inappropriate attire. Disruptive to community standards. Failure to correct behavior. Karen had moved from suggestion to threat. The fines were listed clearly, escalating amounts, weekly penalties, even the possibility of restricted access to shared amenities. Pool. Gym. Clubhouse. All privileges that residents paid for, now being used as leverage. And still, the black woman didn't react the way Karen expected. No angry email. No knock on the HOA office door. No public argument. She simply took the notice down, photographed it, and placed it with the others. Karen noticed. From her porch, she watched the woman walk past later that evening, dressed no differently than before. Confident. Upright. Unbothered. That calm felt like disrespect. So Karen did what power does when it feels challenged, even silently. She started talking. At board meetings, she framed it as concern. She refuses to comply. She's making families uncomfortable. We have to think about property values. The language was clean. Polite. Dangerous. A few board members nodded without asking questions. Others shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Silence, Karen knew, was agreement. Soon, whispers spread. She's being difficult. Why can't she just follow the rules? HOA doesn't usually do this unless there's a reason. Karen fed that narrative carefully. She didn't need everyone on her side, just enough. Then came the email. Mandatory HOA community meeting. Subject line, addressing ongoing violations. The black woman's name wasn't mentioned. It didn't need to be. Everyone knew. Karen smiled when she sent it. This time, she wouldn't just fine her. She would humiliate her, officially, publicly, and permanently. What Karen still didn't understand was this. Every step she took forward was placing her deeper into a trap she couldn't see. And the meeting she was so confident about was about to become something she could never undo. The clubhouse filled faster than usual. Folding chairs scraped against the floor as neighbors took their seats, whispering to one another, glancing toward the front of the room, then toward her. The black woman sat alone in the second row, hands folded calmly in her lap, posture straight, expression unreadable. Karen stood at the front, clipboard resting against her hip like a badge of authority. She waited for the room to settle before speaking. As HOA president, it's my responsibility to ensure this community remains a safe, respectable environment for everyone, she began, her tone rehearsed, almost gentle. Then she shifted. Unfortunately, we've had repeated violations of our dress code. A murmur rippled through the room. Karen clicked a remote. A slide appeared on the screen behind her, highlighted sections of the HOA handbook. Words like decency, appropriate attire, and community image were circled in red. She read them slowly. Carefully. Then she looked directly at the black woman. This isn't personal, Karen said, though her eyes said the opposite. But when someone repeatedly ignores the rules, we have to address it publicly. A few uncomfortable laughs echoed. Someone coughed. Phones quietly rose. Karen stepped closer. We've issued warnings. We've been patient. And yet. She paused, letting the silence stretch. The behavior continues. The black woman didn't flinch. Karen took that as permission. She gestured toward the room. As you can see, this affects all of us. Families. Children. Property values. That word, children, landed like a gavel. Karen straightened. This was her moment. So tonight, we're here to enforce compliance. She turned back to the screen, scrolling through a set of photos, carefully cropped, taken from a distance, framed to imply something scandalous without actually showing anything inappropriate. Gasps. Whispers. The black woman finally stood. Not abruptly. Not angrily. Slowly. The room froze. Karen's smile tightened. You'll have a chance to respond after I finish. The woman waited. Then spoke, softly, but clearly. May I respond now? That single sentence shifted the air. Karen hesitated. She hadn't planned for calm. She hadn't planned for confidence. But backing down now would look weak. She waved her hand dismissively. Fine. Briefly. The black woman stepped forward. No notes. No raised voice. No defensive posture. She looked around the room, at the neighbors, the board members, the phones recording. Then she looked back at Karen. Before I do, she said evenly, I'd like to ask one question. Karen folded her arms. Go ahead. The woman nodded once. Can you explain, she asked, why none of these rules have ever been enforced against anyone else wearing the same clothing? Silence. Karen opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time that evening, the room wasn't waiting for Karen anymore. It was waiting for the truth. And Karen didn't have it. Karen recovered quickly, at least on the surface. This isn't about anyone else, she snapped. This is about you refusing to follow the rules. A few nods followed. Familiar ones. The kind that came from habit, not conviction. The black woman didn't interrupt. She reached into her bag slowly and placed a thin folder on the table in front of the board. The sound it made when it touched the surface was soft, but final. I understand, she said calmly. So let's talk about rules. Karen scoffed. We already are. The woman opened the folder. Inside were neatly organized documents. Dates highlighted. Paragraphs underlined. Photos printed with timestamps. Email chains clipped together. She turned to the board. Over the last 92 days, she continued, I've received 7 violation notices. All for the same alleged issue. Karen smirked. Because you keep violating. The woman nodded. Interesting. Because during that same period, she lifted the first photo. At least 11 other residents wore nearly identical outfits. A murmur spread through the room. She laid the photos out one by one. Different women. Different days. Same jeans. Same tops. Some standing near Karen herself at HOA events. None cited. None warned. None fined. Karen's smile flickered. The woman turned another page. These are my emails to the HOA, she said, asking for clarification. Each one unanswered. Then another. And these are the responses sent about me. She read aloud, not dramatically, not emotionally. She's being difficult. She needs to learn how things work here. If we let this slide, others will think they can get away with it too. The room shifted. Karen stepped forward. Those are internal discussions. They're discoverable, the woman replied calmly. Karen froze. The woman finally introduced herself, not by name, but by role. I work in housing compliance, she said. Specifically, discrimination and selective enforcement cases involving HOAs. Gasps. Real ones this time. She continued, voice steady. What you're doing violates the Fair Housing Act. Selective enforcement based on subjective standards, especially when applied disproportionately, is illegal. Karen laughed nervously. That's ridiculous. The woman didn't respond to the laugh. She pulled out one final document. This, she said, is my formal request for records, which you ignored. And this. She paused. Is the draft complaint I prepared last week, including audio recordings, witness statements, and correspondence. Karen's face drained of color. Board members leaned forward. One whispered, Is that true? The woman closed the folder. I didn't come here to argue, she said. I came to give you a chance to stop. The room was completely silent now. Karen looked around, searching for backup. There was none. Because in trying to publicly shame one woman, she had exposed something far worse. And the power Karen thought she held was beginning to slip fast. Karen's voice cracked as she tried to regain control. This meeting is getting out of hand, she said sharply. We're here to enforce community standards, not debate federal law. But the room no longer belonged to her. A board member cleared his throat. Actually, if what she's saying is true, we need to pause this. Karen shot him a look. We do not. The black woman remained standing, hands relaxed at her sides. I'd like to clarify something, she said calmly. I never refused to follow any written rule. I asked for consistency. She turned toward the screen still displaying the highlighted HOA handbook. These terms, indecent, appropriate, community image, are not defined. That gives the HOA discretion. She paused. And discretion, when applied selectively, becomes discrimination. Phones were fully raised now. Karen pointed. You're twisting this. The woman shook her head. I'm documenting it. She reached into her bag once more. This is an audio recording, she said, holding up her phone. From our conversation last week. Karen stiffened. You can't. The woman pressed play. Karen's own voice filled the room. People like you need to understand this isn't that kind of neighborhood. A collective gasp swept through the clubhouse. Karen lunged toward the table. Turn that off. The woman did, immediately. I complied, she said softly. Just like I always have. The board sat frozen. One member stood. Karen, did you say this? Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Another voice from the back spoke up. I was there. I heard it too. Then another. And another. What Karen had relied on, silence, was gone. A man near the door stepped forward. My wife got warned for a noise complaint last year. Same thing. No explanation. A woman raised her hand. I was told my guests didn't fit the vibe. I didn't know what that meant until now. The floodgates opened. The black woman said nothing. She didn't need to. A knock echoed at the clubhouse door. Two figures entered, a city housing liaison and a uniformed officer, invited by a board member during the meeting. The liaison spoke first. We received a report regarding possible fair housing violations. Karen turned pale. This is unnecessary. The liaison looked at her evenly. It rarely is. The officer stood quietly, not threatening, just present. Authority had shifted. The black woman finally spoke again. I didn't want this to become public, she said. But you chose publicity. Karen's clipboard slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. The board chair took a breath. Effective immediately, we're suspending enforcement actions related to this matter. He turned to Karen. And pending investigation, you are relieved of your duties as HOA president. The words hit like a hammer. Karen shook her head. You can't do this. But it was already done. The room wasn't watching her anymore. They were watching truth take control. And for the first time that night, Karen understood what it felt like to be powerless. The meeting ended quietly, not with applause, not with shouting, but with a heavy stillness that lingered long after the chairs were folded and the lights dimmed. Karen left first. No speeches. No arguments. No final threats. She walked out with her head down, the same hallway she once ruled now silent behind her. No one followed. No one defended her. Power, once exposed, had abandoned her completely. The HOA board stayed behind, speaking in hushed tones. Policies were suspended. Legal counsel was contacted. A formal investigation was set in motion, one that would reach far beyond a single complaint about clothing. The black woman gathered her folder and slipped it back into her bag. A few neighbors approached her quietly. "I'm sorry," one said. "I should have spoken up sooner," said another. She nodded politely, but she didn't linger. Validation had never been the goal. Outside, the night air felt different, lighter. In the weeks that followed, changes came swiftly. The HOA revised its language. Vague terms like indecent and inappropriate were removed. Enforcement procedures were standardized and documented. Karen officially resigned before the investigation concluded. No announcement was made about her departure. There didn't need to be. The neighborhood adjusted. People smiled more, walked easier, spoke without checking over their shoulders. As for the black woman, she returned to her routine. Morning walks, calm steps, quiet confidence. Nothing about her changed. What changed was everything around her. Because justice doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it walks in calmly, lets power expose itself, and leaves without asking for recognition. And long after the meeting was forgotten, the lesson remained. Dignity doesn't need permission. Stories like this don't end with shouting, they end with truth. What happened here wasn't about clothes or rules. It was about who gets questioned and who never does. If you've ever been judged, targeted, or made to feel like you didn't belong, this story is for you. Drop your city or country in the comments. Let people see how far this message travels. And if you believe dignity should never be up for debate, no matter who's in charge, support this channel by liking and subscribing. Because here, we share stories where truth stands firm, power falls quietly, and justice always has the final word.